Hi guys, it's Danny Flexen and Joe Leigh here again with the main event fight review from Wembley Arena this time. Katie Taylor against Miriam Gutierrez. And it proved to be kind of predictably one-sided. Joe, what did you make of it?
Yeah, fantastic fight. So dominant throughout Katie Taylor, and she just proved why she's the best in the world tonight for me. Gutierrez was so tough as well. I think most of us after that first round and that third round thought it wouldn't go the distance. And I'm sure the betting odds would have said that as well. But no, she was tough and stuck in, really had her head in the game throughout. If that's anything to credit herself on, she certainly deserves that. I feel like she should have been pulled out earlier, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, punch perfect from Katie Taylor.
Yeah, I agree. And it's an interesting comparison to the stoppage we were talking about earlier with the Terry Harper fight, in that I thought it was a bit of a soft stoppage. You thought it was fair enough. But
Hmm.
there's no doubt that Miriam Gutierrez took much more of a beating than Katrina Tanders did and was allowed to continue.
And maybe that's due to what was at stake, being as it was the main event, which it shouldn't come down to that. It should come down to the fight at
Yeah.
hand. But sometimes, and in fact, most of the time, it comes down to what it actually is. So, what's at stake, whether it's male or female, whether, there's all these certain things
Well, it's the
that come.
referee as well. It's the individual, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, of course.
We all have our own kind of sensibilities and stuff. Who knows what everyone's thinking in there? But she took a serious beating, and credit to her for standing up to it, trying to fight back when she could. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe the referee could have stepped in earlier. I certainly think the corner could have pulled her out earlier instead of roaring encouragement when she was taking a beating.
With that being said, though, Katie Taylor did really well to gain her momentum, not run out of stamina. I mean, her pace was very quickly throughout, and even in round 10, she was still going at full speed with fully loaded shots as well. She wasn't just hitting her here and there, boxing, jabbing on the outside. She was really going for broke the whole way through, and she didn't literally look like she ran out of steam at all.
Well, it's got to be easier to do that. I mean, it was a great performance from Katie Taylor, but it's got to be easier to do that when you're not getting hit back. You
Yeah.
know, like, she wasn't doing that against Delphine Pursoon in either fight. But it just shows levels, doesn't it? And that there is still a lack of depth generally in the female side of the sport. Don't get me wrong, you see outclassed mandatory contenders in the male side as well on a regular occasion. But
Yeah.
Katie's mandatory contender with the WBA tonight was someone vastly less experienced than her, who'd never fought outside her home country. And her best win was probably against Sam Smith. And Sam Smith's a good fighter, but nowhere near the level of Katie Taylor. So
Yeah, I
can't
think.
begrudge Katie Taylor an easy night after what she's had in the last year or two.
Yeah.
But, after round five, I'd kind of seen enough.
Yeah, I think in the men's game we do deserve more 50-50 fights, but in terms of tonight, yeah, like you say, round 5, 6, it could have been stopped and very well, in my opinion, should have been. But then you've got to look at the other side of it. You do have to, play devil's advocate because Gutierrez had a smile on her face when the ref was lifting up Katie Taylor's hand for the victory, and she really had a sense of pride in her that she got went the distance. So, if she comes out, she was hurt a lot more than she needed to be. But if it was the right thing for her, then it's a difficult decision, man. I
I
don't.
think if we're looking for true equality, then she was allowed to go the distance. A male boxer in the same situation with pride and still hitting back at times or trying to would have
Yeah,
been allowed to go the distance. I just want consistency, and I think
yeah.
Tanders should have been allowed to go the distance. But I'm not going to keep bleating on about that. It was a punch perfect performance, as you said, from
Mhm.
Katie Taylor. Definitely a level above, and we want to see her tested. So I think the thoughts naturally turn to who's next, who can test her, and who will add to her legacy.
Yeah, just quickly, I think it's hard to get consistency when obviously you've got different refs for so many different fights. But who's next for Katie Taylor? There's so many options. I'd like to see her in a domestic fight. I think that'd be unbelievable. Maybe a Jonas. That I think that's more a Harper, but that can maybe be in a couple of years because that would just be an unbelievably huge fight, and certainly on pay-per-view worthy. So yeah, and next up. Potentially, okay, not a domestic one then. I don't. Who have you got in mind?
Well, I don't know. On Sky, they were talking quite a lot about the like cross. I think they called it cross
Oh,
promotional, but it's actually a cross sport fight.
sorry, Amanda Nunes.
No, no, Cyborg.
Cyborg, that's the one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
spoke to her about a Nunes as well, but obviously,
I don't really want to see that. I didn't really want to see Mayweather McGregor. You know, I don't want to see Katie Taylor beat up an MMA fighter.
It doesn't do anything, and actually, I don't think anyone believes that. I mean, going into the McGregor way with a fight, there was a lot of hype, and people were led to believe that a fight would go a certain way, but it was always going to go one way, wasn't it? And to be fair, I was all for that fight, but this one's just a different level of. It just doesn't make sense. Like, Cyborg is an MMA, it's a different sport. I could go on forever.
Well, I think Mayweather McGregor was a huge commercial entity, but surely underline the fact that they are two different sports, and that the MMA fighter would always win in the octagon or the cage, and the boxer would always win in the ring. And I'd much rather see Taylor against one of the domestic opponents you said, or potentially Cecilia Brækhus if Brækhus wins back her welterweight titles against McCaskill.
Yeah.
That could be good.
It would be good, but I don't think it'd be the most entertaining fight. I mean, looking at Brækhus's wins, she's not the most entertaining fighter, but in terms of Katie Taylor's legacy, or Brækhus's legacy as well, it's certainly a big fight for women's boxing, and it's a fight that makes sense if she gets that belt back. When's the rematch?
I'm not sure, but it has been agreed. But it's whether she wins it back, because obviously she could fight McCaskill, but she's already beaten her.
That's what I mean.
But maybe a rematch at a higher weight.
Is the ideal opponent. And she did say in a conference call I was in the other day, she said, she's almost embarrassed to say that she wants to fight her still, but I feel like that is the fight that makes sense. She's a really hard hitter, Serrano, so I think that'll pose a new threat to Katie Taylor and a different threat to what we saw tonight.
Yeah, and she's a big name opponent. It'd do numbers on DAZZLING in the US as well. Maybe a
little bit of tension because of, the way she treated the fight the first time round, and the way she, rejected the offer after accepting it, and all the negotiations that we all heard a million times now. But yeah, hopefully, I don't imagine this happening, but maybe we could see a different side to Katie Taylor, a bit of a, a pumped up Katie Taylor with a bit of rivalry. But yeah, I think Serrano next. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind the Jonas fight. I don't know. I mean, I'd much rather see the Jonas Harper rematch.
Yeah, to be honest. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, no two fights are ever the same, but it's still a great fight, and it still excites me if that's a potential.
I just think for Harper or Jonas to step up and fight Katie Taylor, I'd like to see one of them, conclusively prove they're better out of the two first. Then it's a bigger fight with Taylor.
That's a good point. I think Tasha Jonas needs to have another fight now, because Eddie Hearn was mentioning other opponents and not Tasha Jonas next. So she needs to stay active, and then it will obviously lead to a bigger second fight than the first, in front of a crowd, hopefully by the time that comes around. And then the winner of that, that would be a massive fight against Katie Taylor. I said domestic, obviously. Katie Taylor isn't British, but...
What? Katie Taylor's not British? Oh, no. I wish you would have mentioned it so we could get all the trolls on the comment section just killing us for it. She's Irish, she's Irish, she's ours. Right. Chill. You can keep her. It's all right. We've got Joshua.
Yeah. And Fury.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anyway, guys, we want to know what you think, not just of Katie Taylor's performance, but who should be next for her. What did you make of the fight tonight, and who would you like to see her going against next time out? We might do some of these again. Next time we're not actually in the bubble. Obviously, we're in the Frank Warren bubble for Dubois Joyce, which is the next big fight coming, but I think we'll do a keys to victory for that anyway. We'll see you all soon, and really appreciate you watching.
Thank you.